Certainly glad you could join us today. That's just fantastic. We have instructors that travel all over the country, spreading the joy of painting. We don't make mistakes. We just have happy accidents.
Hi, welcome back to the studio. I'm Nic Hankins. I'm a certified Bob Ross instructor, and it's my pleasure to be with you today. I'm glad you could join me for a little demonstration of the Bob Ross wet-on-wet painting technique. I thought today we'd paint a little seascape. So let me tell you about what I've done to my 18 by 24 canvas here in preparation, and we'll get started. If you come up here and take a look at the canvas, it was first covered with a very thin, even coat of black gesso. Now, black gesso is a water-based paint, so it dries very quickly, and the black gesso was allowed to dry completely before we began. On top of the black gesso, I've applied a very, very, very thin, even coat of liquid clear. You need as little as you can get away with. You might even want to try to put it on and then wipe it all back off with a lint-free paper towel, or place a paper towel on there and just kind of brush over the paper towel with your paintbrush and soak up all that excess clear. You need very, very little when you use it. Now, on top of the liquid clear, I've applied some transparent color. The transparent color just means that we can see right through it, and the canvas is still going to look black, as it does now. I applied some Alizarin Crimson, a mixture of Alizarin Crimson and Phthalo Blue, just kind of right through this area. And all around that, I've surrounded it with a color called Mountain Mixture. It's Bob's famous mountain mixture of blue, brown, and crimson and black, but it's pre-tubed now. You can buy that in a tube ready to go. So I've mixed together basically 2 parts Mountain Mixture, 1 part Phthalo Green, and I've applied that all around the outside of this lavender. Then on the bottom, I just picked up a little Dyke Brown and Mountain Mixture, and I spread that across the bottom. So with all that said, let's get started. Let me grab a 1-inch brush here. And we'll pick up a little titanium white. I'm envisioning a nighttime scene. That's the reason for prepping the canvas with some black gesso. And I'm just going to go right into some titanium white with my 1-inch brush. A little bit of paint on both sides. I think we'll have maybe a little moonlit painting. So let's start right here. And I'm just going to make some little sideward strokes, little cradle type strokes like this with the side of the brush. And I'm just going to begin working outward. This may look a little messy at first, but it kind of comes together. So don't go away. Hang around with me, and let's see how it turns out. Then I'll let this stretch out and out and out and out. And that's a wild color in that painting. There we go. Just have a little fun with it. Something like so. All right, let's wash our brush. We'll wash our brush out in some odorless paint thinner. Just swish it around in the bucket. Shake out the excess. We'll beat the devil out of it. It's not quite as fun to wash as a 2-inch brush, but it works. It works. We got a little brush wash in there. Speaking of a 2-inch brush, let's grab one. Let's grab a little clean, dry 2-inch brush, and we'll come right back up here. I'm going to soften this down and see how I feel about it. Now, I might want to come back and make this a little brighter, or I might be happy with it as is and leave it alone. I just don't know yet. I'm going to begin there in the lightest area, in the lavender, and work my way out. And periodically, I'll just kind of knock out the excess. Just want to blend this down until it gets nice and soft. There we go, just sort of push it out of focus. I think we might benefit from just a little dose more of the white. So let me pick up just a little more. I'm going to go right back into that bright spot. Let's start there again. Work my way out. There we go. Once more, back to that 2-inch brush. Wipe it out a little bit or knock off the excess paint. And again, with a nice light touch, I'm just going to soften my way out and around. There we go. You can make that just as smooth as silk if you want. All right. Let's take our, let's take everybody's favorite brush. First brush everybody uses. Get a little titanium white on our finger. Let's come up here to this bright spot. We'll plug a little moon in place right there. I'm just going to put my finger down, spin it around until I get something reasonably round. There we go. Put a little moon up there. Come back, grab my 2-inch brush again, very, 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 very lightly. Just graze across that. There we go. Till we take a little bit of the texture off. Now we can have some fun. Let's grab a good old number 6 fan brush. We'll come up here and drop a few little clouds in the sky. Think on a night like this, just with all this movement and action in the sky, we might see a few little clouds floating around. So let's pick up some titanium white. And I'm going to make some very similar motions. Just going to come up here and kind of make some little shallow figures of 8, or little cradle strokes. Bob sometimes calls them little cradle strokes. And just kind of let your brush dance around and have fun. Just streaky little clouds floating around in the sky. Periodically I might reach over here and just kind of wipe off some of that bluish greenish color I'm picking up before I go back and add more light. Right around the moon is where I want it to be the brightest. So I'm going to take care to try to have some relatively clean, relatively bright white on the brush. There we go. Something like that. Maybe there's a little over here. Just little cradly strokes. Maybe some of them are a little longer than others. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Some are a little softer, a little darker. Some are a little brighter. Just all kinds. Just all kinds. All right. Let's blend some of those with our 2-inch brush. We'll come up here and just brush gently across there, basically following that same direction. My clouds are sort of sweeping this way. I'm going to follow them in that direction with this 2-inch brush. And just soften it down. I don't want to destroy them. I don't want to wipe them all away or mash them all into the background. Some we can push a little harder and make them disappear, make them a little softer, make them a little darker. Some of them we're going to be very, very careful and just kind of graze over. There we go. Just so we have a variety, that's all we're worried about. Okay. Let's come on down here and think about some water, think about an ocean. What we want exactly. I'm going to first decide where my horizon line is. Now, oftentimes you'll see Bob put a little piece of masking tape on his dry canvas, and then he'll begin painting. And you can do that too if you want a little help keeping your horizon line straight. What I like to do sometimes is back up and take a look at it. Maybe make a little mark on this side and just kind of measure with my brush, eyeball it, make sure I've got a reasonably straight line there. That's going to represent my horizon. We don't have to have it absolutely perfect right now. We'll just get an idea. We'll maybe straighten it up with a knife later. Show you how to use your palette knife. Make a nice little horizon line effect, especially with a good strong light source like that. Next thing I want to do is find where the water's coming up on the beach. So maybe right about there. That's where my water's going to rush up onto the beach. Then we can think about a big breaker, big breaking wave. Maybe right there. And it'll hit and splash and carry on, spin around, run up like that. That'll be the wall of the wave over there. And now let me talk a little bit about this background here. A nice little way to set up your ocean scenes. They always have reasonably good perspective. We want it to look like that that water is just sort of going right off back into a faraway horizon. I'm going to split the difference between this side and this side. Make a little mark, split the difference on this side, put it right in the middle, and I'll basically connect those two marks with a somewhat straight line. And if you notice, this side is just a little higher than that side. Same over here. I'm going to make this one just in between there. There we go. That will establish our little swells rolling in behind that big breaker, behind that big breaking wave. All right, let's take a palette knife. Just pull some of that paint out nice and flat on our palette. Really get tough and mash it out. Cut across and get a little roll of paint. Let's come up to this horizon right below the moon. Just gonna begin touching. Touch, 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 touch. Touch, touch. You don't have to smear or glide or drag or shove or cut or push or manipulate that paint in any way. You just touch the knife blade to it and pull it right back away. Might even wipe off the excess and just work with what's there. And I'm going to allow this to stretch out, stretch out, stretch out along that horizon. Let the canvas take what it wants. It will give you back what's left. That's so nice. That's so nice. Make sure we're somewhat straight. Yeah, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. Want it brightest underneath the moon, and then it just kind of naturally gets darker, 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 darker. As you work away and you have to whisper when you get out here. There we go. Okay. Take my 2-inch brush and I'm just gently going to brush across that. Try to pull that as straight as you can. Just wisp it gently, gently. We'll reach down here and find a little fan brush now. So I've applied my little outline with my number 6 fan brush. I'm even gonna maybe just make that a little stronger. These lines don't really need to be pretty or anything like that right now. I'm not too concerned about how nice a mark I'm making. I'm more concerned about where I'm making this little mark and that I have enough paint on there to work with. And that should be okay. Now I'm grabbing a clean and dry number 3 fan brush. Nice, clean, dry brush. Let's come in here and I'm just going to take this color, take the top of this line, and again, using a little cradle stroke that just kind of rocks back and forth and back and forth. That's terribly exaggerated, but you get the idea. Like that, but not as extreme. I'm just going to sweep the top of that back. We'll drop down to the next one. I'm going to do the same thing. Sweep it back. I'm most interested in saving this little dark area at the base of that little swell. Or at the crest of the swell, excuse me. This is what we're making right here is actually the trough of the wave. What you're seeing created here is just the light, the moonlight that's kind of falling into that low point between the waves. Periodically, I'm wiping my brush off because I don't want to spread this around too much. Let's continue on with our little cradle stroke. Just grabbing that paint, sweeping it back. Isn't that wild? It's one of my favorite things in this method. It's just creating the outline or laying in the basic construction of a little ocean scene. It's just remarkable how quickly that begins to look like ocean water and a great distance back into the distance there. Back toward that horizon. All right, let's think a little bit about this breaking wave. This is the one that's coming up and crashing over. So it's literally going to be a little tunnel right there. So let me pick up a filbert brush. These are very, very helpful for painting ocean scenes. So I'm going to grab a filbert and I'm going to pick up, we'll start with some titanium white. I'm going to add just a little touch, a little touch of cadmium yellow. Just a nice pale yellow. Look, both sides of my brush. Now watch this. I'm going to take this brush, turn it on its side, punch it down right at the highest point of that wave, and I'm going to begin to spin it around. But I'm spinning it around in very, very tight, tiny little circles. It's almost like I'm trying to polish the surface of the canvas. If you've ever waxed a car or polished silverware, that's what I'm doing right here. That's the kind of motion I'm making. And then I'll just stretch this out, until really nothing else comes off the brush. I just want that brightest area right there. That's the important part. All right. Knock out my 2-inch brush. I'm going to turn it up, put that top corner on that eye in the brightest area. And again, I'm going to make tiny little circular motions. Just let it revolve around. Until you blend this just as smooth as glass. Knock out the excess. Maybe now we'll take this and just sort of pull it down and forward. So I'll put a little curl in there and then sweep it forward. So we get a feeling, or we begin to get a feeling or a sense of the shape of that ocean wave wall there. Now we got our moonlight glowing through that little wave. Isn't that cool? Seascapes are fun to paint. If you've never painted one, you really ought to try it. It is just possible that we would see a little bit of an eye on that side. So let me go back with the filbert. I just wiped it out a bit. Doesn't need to be nearly as bright. Maybe we see just a little semblance of that eye over here. We've got 2 eyes. An ocean wave should have 2 eyes, right? I guess. Sounds good to me. I'm not going to worry too much about that one, but that will give you another look at how one goes in. That one's sort of quickly thrown in, but we know it's there. It's all right. All right. Let's have a little ocean water cascading over the top of that wave. So let me wipe out my old fan brush here. I'm going back to the number 6. I'm going to load it full of titanium white. Let's come up here and think about, actually we could take a little titanium white and get a little touch of that yellow too. Why not? Just make it extra warm, adding a little bit of a yellow or a pinkish glow to your white. Always makes it feel just a little brighter, a little warmer. So let's come up here and find the cascade of the wave. I'm just going to press and sweep it over. Press and sweep it over. Press and sweep it over. Each stroke here will overlap the previous stroke, and that's important. Got to make little noises for an ocean wave. Reload periodically, especially if you want your wave to be a nice strong light. There he is, something like that. So I've got some white. I'm going to add a little blue and a little touch of Alizarin Crimson and mix all that together. And I'm just going to play around with it back and forth until I get it to the shade of lavender or purple or whatever you want to call it that you want. I'm getting close. I'm getting close. Maybe a little touch of that mountain mix just to darken it down. Yeah, That should work. So if a wave is that big and it's crashing and it's hitting the water below, you're certainly going to have a lot of foam splash come up. So that's where I want to use this filbert brush. I'm just going to pick up some of that purple color, and we'll come in here and create some foam along the top of the wave here. So it would maybe begin to bubble up along here, just real narrow over the top. I'm still making like tiny little circles, tight little circles that just sort of cascade over, and then it hits here and when it really splashes. I gotta have a little bit of lavender in there first. A little shadow first, then we'll come back and highlight it. There we go. All right, let's wash that little filbert out. I want to dry that off thoroughly on a paper towel. Dry it out, dry it out, dry it out good, and then I'll pick up some titanium white. Just plain old titanium white. All right, let's come up here. Think about where that moonlight's hitting the wave. I'm just going to add a little highlight to the very tippy top of the wave, the very tippy top of the foam. Just right through here. Give it a little push and make tiny little circles, pushing on that upstroke. See, push when you want it to be nice and bright. Explode with foam and highlight. If you're picking up a lot of that lavender color or your base color, just wipe your filbert off every so often. You can go ahead and begin to blend those together just a little bit. Blend those two values together so it feels like one big bunch of foam with a nice bright top on it. Let's come up here and make this splash up. Another little splash beneath that. You better have your noises ready. If you're going to paint an ocean wave, you better have those noises ready. They just don't work without good noises, so practice your noises. Boy, these are a lot of fun to paint. All right, let's get in there with our 2-inch brush. And we'll just soften this a little bit, right where those two values come together, the light and the dark come together. We'll just soften that into a little middle value or middle tone. Just using the top corner of that 2-inch brush. If you get into a tight spot like I am right there, can't quite fit that 2-inch brush over the eye of that wave, so I'm just going to go back to my filbert, wipe it out a bit. We'll kind of tidy it up with that little brush. There we go. We'll blend it that way. That'll work. All right, let's see about maybe I'm going to grab tell you what, I'm going to trade for my small knife. I've been using the big knife. This knife is real easy to sneak into little places like this, and it's a little more flexible than the big knife. So I want to use this one to just cut off a little roll of titanium white. And let's come in here and think about where we'd have a little water sneaking up toward the beach in front of the wave. There we go. I've always enjoyed seascapes. They're a little trickier maybe than some of Bob's other subjects, but gosh, they're a lot of fun to paint. I live in Florida now, so I'm fortunate, I get to see the ocean quite a bit. It's fun to go out and study it and take pictures and just get a feel for it. I think when you get to go out and see something and study it, it really helps you paint it. Just grabbing the back edge of that, pulling it back so we've got a little surface on that water. Let's do that again. That worked really well. And I'm not even particularly interested if this white is super duper fresh and right out of the tube. All I'm looking for is just something lighter than what I have up here now. And what I have up here now is so dark, really anything I put on top is going to show and work out pretty well. There we go. Always keeping that knife blade flat and level. Just go back and find a fan brush. We'll sweep this one back just like we did the one behind. I'm going to pull it straight back, straight back, straight back, straight back. And perhaps underneath here, this has got to be getting close to the beach now. So if this is hitting the beach and we're that close to the moon, this sand would be very wet and you'd see some reflection in here. We may have to come back and restate our water line, our little bit of foam there, but that's all right. This is a neat effect and it's worth it. It's worth going back and doing a little extra work once in a while. Got to do it. Got to work for it sometimes. Can't always be easy. We wouldn't appreciate things if they weren't a little bit of a challenge once in a while. All right. Now let's come back and restate that little piece of foam, that little ledge of foam. I don't know what else to call it. The suds. The suds coming up on the beach. Right. Just clean up any little funky looking edges that we might have come up with. I think that'll work. All right. Been standing here holding a little liner brush. I'm anxious to do one of my favorite things in a seascape, and that's thin down a little bit of this lavender color. I'm going to darken it just slightly with a little more mountain mix and phthalo blue and alizarin. A little bit of paint thinner in here, of course, just to loosen it, soften it, make it flow all over the place. There we go. Want to intensify the shadow of that foam as it comes over that real high contrast point, as it comes over that little eye of the wave. Just going to deepen that shadow a little bit. Ooh, I love doing that. That's such a neat look. Such depth that adds. There we go. And maybe even a little over here. I'm not going to spend too long on that side. I just want to separate that little corner a bit. And oftentimes you'll see if you have an ocean wave and it's a little bit in silhouette like this, you'll see some foam sneaking up into that wave. And if it's in front of that little window, it will contrast. It will be in silhouette. So we'll start with a few little dark foamy things live up in that wave, and then we can get lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter as we work our way out now and back into my original little foamy color. I sort of make little, I'm not sure what to call them. I just call them sort of like fish hooks. Just like a little web of little spindly, curly things. You could almost think of them as little lowercase z's or number 2s or whatever, as long as you hook them together. And as long as they follow the curvature of the arc of your wave, everything will be fine. Because it's just the foam from the previous wave having decayed, and it's laying out here on the water in little oval patterns, and then those oval patterns just get sucked up into that wave wall as the next wave comes in. Further out this way you go, though, they have to get a little shallower, they have to get a little lower. Let's put a few in on this side. There we go. And once they cross about this point right here, it's just about even with the bottom of your foam. That's called your baseline. That's the baseline of the wave. That's the ground level of the wave. Once they cross that baseline, they basically just lie flat. They're basically just sort of hanging out here on the water surface. So I'll make a few little cradle strokes out here, little really shallow little figures of 8. That's a good way to drop in a bunch of foam patterns and not have to think too much about it. Basically get them correct. There we go. Sometimes it's not a bad idea. Let me knock that brush off. Sometimes it's not a bad idea to put those in, let them sit for just a second. If they feel like they're a little too strong or a little too in focus or definite, you can just graze over them. Half a hair and some air. Just barely graze over them and knock them down. I usually leave these near the eye alone because I want them to be pretty high contrast. And sometimes I just soften these out here on the periphery a little bit. Let them sit down and be very quiet. Very quiet little things. There we go. Sometimes this foam will sort of roll over a top there like that. Connect. I don't always like to see that be a one solid line across my canvas. It's nice to sort of break it up a little bit once in a while. All right. Let's go back in here and play for just a minute. We'll use that little liner brush again. I'm going to pick up a little more white, maybe even just a little touch of liquid white. Titanium white and liquid white, and just a drop of paint thinner, and just an extremely little touch of cadmium yellow, just tiniest little thing you can imagine, a little touch of it to warm it up. And we'll add some highlight to the crest of these little swells back in here. Basically, it lies in those low points, and you drop a few little cradle strokes in there, and then you let it get darker and darker and darker and darker as it works its way toward the edge, like that. There we go. Just brighten it up a little bit right in here. This goes a long way. You won't need to do much of this. In fact, if you do too much of it and you do it everywhere, it loses its effect. It's special when it first goes on, and it's nice and soft on the edges. Brilliantly lit through the middle and nice and soft on the edges. Really lights up those low points. Maybe we see just a little bit of phosphorus and algae and all that good stuff that's kind of lit up by the moonlight. All that great stuff that's out in the ocean lights up and looks pretty. If it gets a little too strong like it did right there, you can just take your finger and rub it. I do that a lot. Put something in, decide I don't like it, rub it out a little bit. It's all right. You just have to play back and forth. That's the thing about painting. Painting is basically just problem solving. And the most fun in painting comes when you kind of get yourself in a jam and you have to figure out how to get back out. That's when the real fun starts. All right. Clean some of that green color out of there, and I want to maybe just catch a few of these right in here. Make these a little brighter. Just imagine that moonlight would pass that high point and catch right down here. Light all this stuff up. My goodness, and you can just spend hours and hours and days on stuff like this if you wanted to. And you should if you want to. Unfortunately, I don't have time to do that with you today, but that also wouldn't be very much fun to watch, so we'll keep it limited. We'll keep it limited. A little bit over here maybe. There we go. That's enough to get the idea. Okay. Got to show you something fun. I think you'll like this. So I'm going to take a fan brush. My little fan brush. It's a bit dirty. Doesn't matter. It's okay. I'm going to go right into my mountain mix. I've dipped it in thinner. In fact, I'm going to dip it in just a little more until I get this right. I'm going to pick up a little mountain mix and a little Dyke Brown. A little more thinner. Get this very, very, very wet. Stay right there. I'll be right back. That looks pretty close. Let's try it. I'm going to set my palette down for just a minute. Grab my palette knife. Let's come right up here to the beach. I think you'll get a charge out of this. I'm just going to take this brush full of dark, wet paint, and I'm going to flip it against the palette knife and put some little seashells and debris on our beach. We'll do some dark stuff first. Then I'll rinse that brush out. Pick up a little liquid white. And I'll mix up some nice soft color for our light debris on the beach. Maybe add a little yellow ochre to it. Maybe a little touch of bright red. Warm it up a little bit. Give it sort of a peachy color. Let's come back up to this same area and we'll do it again. Just flip a few little things right through there. Little bits of debris and stuff that are always on the beach. That really makes it look sandy. I just think that's such a cool effect. Couldn't wait to come in and show you this painting just so I could do that. That's all right. Got to look forward to things, don't we? Okay, let's carry on. Let's carry on here. Where should we go next? I'll tell you what. I've got this big number 6 fan brush in my hand. Maybe I need to clean up a little spot on my palette here. Get rid of that thin paint. I don't want to get in trouble. So we'll remove that. Even on a big old palette, I still run out of room, but that's all right. So let's take some titanium white and some Van Dyke Brown, and some yellow ochre. So I've got titanium white, Van Dyke Brown, a little touch of yellow ochre, all on the fan brush. Now let's come in here and just kind of get brave, and let's say we'll cut this off right there. Just have it exit right there. This is a big old sand dune. You didn't know it was there until now, did you? But there it is. And then I'll just continue to sort of fill this in. But I'm not going to add any more light color. I'm just going to keep dragging this down toward that corner, so it's going to pick up the brown and the mountain mix that I placed on there in the first place, and it's just going to get darker, 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 darker. You can even put that on, take your big brush, and blend and soften it out a little bit if you needed to, if you wanted to. Sometimes it's fun to come back and take just a little lighter color. I'm going to add a little more titanium white to that. Let's come back. A lot of times when the wind crosses over a sand dune, it'll make these little ripples. You'll see little ripples through the entire dune, just where the sand's built up and really made some interesting texture. So let's take this and maybe we'll make a few little ripples across here where the wind's just kind of, I'm not sure what you call that, strata maybe? I don't know. No, that's rocks. I don't know. Somebody will tell me. I just think it looks pretty. Whatever it is, it's neat. And I like to paint it. I'm a simple man. I just like to paint. I like to look at things and paint. There we go. Put a little bit of that in there, and then let's soften it. Let's soften it and really make it look cool. Pretty neat little effect. Yeah. Like that. I like that. All right, let's wash out that fan brush. Let's wash out that big fan brush. And this, if that has some debris on it, this certainly would too. So let's play again. Let's pick up a little mountain mix. And Van Dyke Brown, we'll get some of that dark color going again. Mountain mix and Van Dyke Brown, a lot of thinner in that brush. Okay, let's do our little knife trick again. I just can't wait. It's too good. It's too good not to do it. All right. Kind of start in an innocuous area here. So you don't just go up here and hit it and have anything that comes off too big. Sometimes I want a little bigger one. If you want a little bigger mark, you can just sort of flick it harder. Put a little more oomph in your flick. There we go. Something about like that. Something about like that. We don't want to get too carried away. At least not yet. I have to save that for the end. All right. What else should we have? Tell you what. Let's grab a 1-inch brush. I'm going to pull it through some mountain mix. I'm just holding it straight up and down like this. And I'm going to pull it through some mountain mix and some Van Dyke Brown. Pull it in one direction only. We'll pick up a little of our Phthalo Green. So I've got mountain mix, Van Dyke Brown, little Phthalo Green. Let's come right up here and just add some vegetation up here at the top of our sand dunes. That's mountain mix and Van Dyke Brown, little Phthalo Green. Nice dark color. Just kind of let it walk its way down that down that little slope. Grab a clean fan brush. We might see a little shadow coming away from that base, so it feels like it's really planted down into the ground. Something like that. And then I want to hit some of this color with a liner brush, and lots of paint thinner. Really get it wet, soupy, drippy, runny wet. Be right back. I'm going to get a little more. Get it just as wet and runny as you can. Turning that brush at my fingertips as I load it. All right, let's come on up to the canvas. I'm just going to hold the tip in there and sweep it up with my arm like this and make some sea oats that live out here. You have to reload pretty frequently, but that's all right. Just kind of making a great big oval shape, but I'm only touching on this side of the oval, if that makes sense. Just letting my arm do the work there. You can really go crazy. Just let these things fly. Big, big, big sand dunes. Like we're standing on the dune, and these sea oats are very close to us. I think that's a neat look. Pretty neat look. Gotta have a few on the near batch. that little batch of sea oats that lives there a little closer. Gotta have a few sticking up out of there. Tapping in that little bit of color in the beginning just kind of gives you a good place to plant your sea oats. That way they don't look like they're too sparse. It's nice to have a little dark base for them. You can get as brave as you want. Maybe some go way out there. Big old tall things. Wind must be blowing a little bit. They're all kind of leaning in this way. And some of them, let's pick up a little Van Dyke Brown. Some of these will have, we'll do a little detail work on them. Some of these will have, if you've ever seen sea oats, they have little oats on the end. They kind of looks like a little piece of wheat or grain on the end. I just kind of do a little dot, 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 dot like that. Dot, 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 dot. I'm not going to do this to all of them, but just a few. Makes it look kind of neat. Did too many, it would be sort of hokey looking, and it'd sort of detract from everything else, and we don't want to do that. Don't want to get too busy. Just want a few little things over here. You can make some of the finest little lines though with a liner brush. It's fun to play with these things. See what you can come up with. Those little brushes are so handy sometimes, especially in a seascape. It's probably when I lean on them the most. There we go. Maybe a few of these would just catch a little highlight. So just dip my dirty brush into a little more thinner, and I'm picking up some ochre. Don't mind if a little brown mixes with it. I'm just going to dab a little touch of highlight on a few of these here and there and there and here. Just so they kind of, especially if they're against a real dark part of the background there. There we go. You can even fake in a few that way. Gives us some nice little things. Maybe down here we'll have a little touch of cadmium yellow and phthalo green. Maybe we just see a little bit of separation down here. We see a little bit of that moonlight casting a slightly different green. Just separate some of these. I guess in light that extreme, you might even see, let me grab a little more brown, you might even see some of these shadows fall back across the sand here. Just kind of extending, but some of the longer, bigger blades of grass would cast a little shadow across our dune there. Let's see. What else do we need? Maybe, what would a seascape be? What would a seascape be if we didn't do just a couple little extra details here? Let me first do this. I'm just going to take a little bit of my dark foam color. I got to play a minute. Just excuse me. I got to play for just a minute. Let me take some of my darker foam color here. I'm darkening this color just a bit more with some mountain mix and crimson, and I'm going to put a little shadow right under that foam that's coming up on the beach. Just make that stand up and stand out. Gives it a little more dimension. Whoop, got a little carried away there, didn't I? There we go. Old finger fixes everything. Although that's not always true when you're driving. There we go. And maybe I think I want that just a fuzz darker. There we go. A couple little doodads out there in the water. Like I was saying, it wouldn't be right if we didn't have a little, maybe a little seagull flying around or two. Don't know how many would be out at night, but maybe there'd be a couple out for a little night flight, a little night cruise. So let me show you a fun way to make a seagull. I'm going to take some of that lavender color we had mixed up. This is actually a little leftover base color I had that I put on the canvas originally. This is my mountain mix in Phthalo Green. We're just going to kind of doctor this up to a pretty neutral gray, adding crimson to gray it down. I want a reasonably dark gray. There we go. All right. That's one half of the equation. Now let me take a little titanium white right beside it. And I'm going to use a little liquid white. Little liquid white and titanium white. Mix those together. So it's a little softer than usual. That's what we want. All right. Now, let's dip the old liner brush in some paint thinner. Soften this down considerably. I'm going to load the brush very full with that gray first, twisting the handle around as you do it, because you want the fine hairs in this brush to pull to a sharp little point. You can draw just tiniest little things you can imagine. So I'm going to pull that to a nice sharp chiseled edge, or a nice sharp pointy edge, I guess I should say. It doesn't really chisel, although you can chisel it if you want. It does have a little option for doing that too. I'll show you that sometime. Now we're going to pull one side only, through our light mixture. So I have, believe it or not, I've got a double loaded liner there. I've got light on one side, dark on the other side. So let's come up here and we'll just find a place where we want a little seagull and go, and we can put our light and our dark in all at the same time. Isn't that nifty? We'll go back, reload. Maybe we'll give him a little friend here. And for good measure, one more. Maybe they got a little friend. He's chronically late. He's kind of like me. He's always running late. There we go. Just a little ways behind him. All right. Out for a moonlight flight. Let's take a little Alizarin Crimson. We'll come down in the corner and sign this one maybe. Again, this would be a good opportunity for you to see how to use that liner brush. Lots of opportunities to use it in this painting, and that's fun. Pull it to a fine point. Let's come down here in the corner. I just like to hold the brush straight in. Just use that point. I'm not really trying to draw with my fingers or my wrist or anything like that. I just hold it straight in, and I kind of try to move my hand around with my elbow and my shoulder. You'll make much steadier motions if you use your big arm muscles instead of those little ones in your joints, your finger joints and your wrist. And I just like to print my name. It's nice and easy to use those little block letters. I've seen people in classes who have big long names and they write their whole name in cursive, and it's beautiful, but I can't do it. So never could make my name look that good. Anyway, hope you had fun at the ocean with me. I hope you enjoyed this painting, and I hope to see you again soon. Happy painting.